Anuki, shall we start? Because
Hi,
it's 11.
Rehan. We are going to start the webinar and then push it live on Facebook, okay?
Right. So tell me when I could start.
Yeah. Is everyone in? Yeah. All right. Rohan, you can start.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today from wherever you are. And I hope you're comfortable and safe, which are most important at the moment. And thank you for joining this particular webinar where we are talking about propelling your customer through their buying journey. And of course, as you can see, I am very privileged and honored to have a very esteemed panelist joining me for this discussion over the next maybe 60 plus minutes. And of course, we'll get into the details with them. But the idea behind this particular webinar and the topic, the thematic we have chosen, is constructed around the fact that if you look at the last 12 to 18 months, as a result of COVID, obviously, there's this cliche statement that the best thing that happened for digital acceleration was the COVID-19. Yes, there is some positives at the backdrop of all that have happened to the world. Even Sri Lanka is no different, and we are seeing while certain industries struggle like aviation and hospitality industry, there had been this massive push by every organization, maybe as a bare minimum for survival, maybe as a result of the need to have survival, maybe as a result of survival instinct, have moved to make any product or any service being made available on digital as a service through acquisition or as a service for even delivery and consuming. So this is the backdrop at which we are heading into this webinar. And once again, I would like to thank all of my panelists who have joined and all of you who are watching us either on Facebook Live or on Zoom. And I think we will be opening up for Q&A in about 15-20 minutes. Please leave your questions with us. We will pick as and when it is possible for us throughout this discussion, as well as based on the relevancy and importance of that questions as well. But we'll try to get back to you as much as possible. Then that's a promise we and the team behind this webinar will make to you. So on the backdrop of that, I would like to start off the webinar. I don't think we need to give introductions in the era of information, where I think information era is past. I'm sure all of you have either Googled or looked into LinkedIn profiles of each of our panelists. So I will avoid that time of introductions of our panelists. But of course, I think the names are quite popular. You have seen them well enough. I think we are definitely emerging past the information era to the experience era. And I think that is really going to translate something really interesting. I think it's fair to assume that most of these organizations today have a lot of digital platforms and some kind of a presence available. Now it is just about taking that extra, the next phase of that evolution, about really taking their customer through to the buying journey and making it a kind of a business value creating platform and a channel for you. So with that, I would just like to open up for opening remarks from our panelists. Shalin, I'm coming to you first. Would you be just kind enough to give us what your overarching opening thoughts about this particular topic?
Well, I think as you rightly said, what happened in the last 1.5 years is it pushed us all to accelerate in the digital space across many fields. I mean, look at our tea auction, for instance. They never thought they'll go digital, but they did, and it worked. So even with us, what happened was there was always a plan to go digital, but it was accelerated greatly with what happened, really through necessity. So apart from the digital selling perspective, that whole connectivity digital is another thing that we had to work on, because we are a very experiential brand. So we had to figure out how we create that experiences that you have when you come into the store that are multi-sensory through a digital platform or through social media and all those other platforms, bringing them together. So it's been an interesting time of reinventing ourselves and telling our story in a very different way. So it's been a lot of learnings. I mean, I think we can dive deeper into it as we progress, but it's been a big learning experience. And it's basically, I'd say it's accelerated where we would have gone in maybe 6-7 years in the last few months or the last 18 months. So it's been a really great journey, and a journey that opened up, also widened up the brand to a lot of people.
Amazing. I mean, Shalin, always when I speak to you, I'm always full of admiration for the kind of effort and the brand that you have built over the years. And I think it's really interesting to see, with your presence across so many geographies, and the kind of a push for this particular range. And if you don't mind me saying that, even going to the level of saying it's a luxury positioning, right? How it had impacted. I'd love to get into the nuts and bolts. I think that's a very serious and interesting conversation there. Udara, over to you, mate. What are your thoughts?
Hi, Rohan. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think from a digital marketer perspective, I would say like this is the best time to be and be proud to be a digital marketer, I would say, right? Like we are like the heroes in the industry, right? In any business, I would say, right? They're looking at us like as the saviors, right? Like Avengers to save the world, right? In every angle, in every aspect, I would say, right? And just look at in any market, right? Like any industry, right? From like coconut sellers to like luxury product sellers, everyone is on digital, right? So like I was mentioning about this like a couple of weeks back in one of the webinars as well. I never expected like this soon, like someone would sell coconuts on Facebook. Yeah. Right. So there was a post that I'm seeing an ad that the coconuts, they are like for 80 rupees. Who would have thought this would happen? Right. Yeah. So just like I'm amazed. At the same time, like this could have taken 10 years for this growth in digital marketing, I would say, right, to come to this position, right? And within like 1 or 2 years, like fortunately or unfortunately, like because of a pandemic or any other reason, right, it happened, right? It happened for a good reason, I would believe, right? And then now it's up to us for us to gear up, I would say, right? I think we were kind of like back. I was thinking like kind of like lagging behind in terms of the activities that we have been doing for like last 10 years in terms of digital marketing. I think Rohan would have kind of like an understanding, like since you have been in like different organizations, different industries as well, how it has evolved. Now it's the best time for you to get into digital marketing or like expand in digital marketing.
I love the thought that you said we are like the heroes. I mean, damn right, we are not getting enough attention right now for this. Like, I'm not even getting we are not getting paid enough, but we're definitely not getting enough attention.
Well,
for sure.
You can remember, like earlier days, we were in the back seats. Can you remember when there's a marketing meeting or something? We are like the water boys. We were like water boys, right? Now we are in the main seats.
Right? Yeah, the opening batsman now.
Exactly.
So Mane, always a pleasure to have you in the panel. And what are your thoughts? I mean, my God, the stories I could tell about, the years of working together and being our customer. Mane, over to you.
Please go on, Rohan. Yeah, I think I have to agree with both Shalin and Udara as well. I think it's an exciting time to be in digital marketing, isn't it? I remember, maybe 4 or 5 years back, I was in Aussie and I was spending some time with my cousin, and we went into this mall, right? And I was watching her using her iPhone and tapping on all of these different things, making payments completely contactless. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, when is Sri Lanka ever going to get to this point? And look at us today, right? Look at where the market has come to today, right? And we've had this dramatic explosion in digital. And yeah, it's an exciting time. And I think the topic that we're discussing today, the user journey and how the customer fits into all of this, is really interesting. So yeah, excited to be here. Thanks, Rohan.
Oh, amazing, Manisha. And thanks a lot for that. I think, yeah, absolutely. I always believe technology is a great equalizer and democratizing the field, right? I mean, it's amazing to see all of that even in Sri Lanka. So Niranka, over to you, mate. As the CEO of Untitled Solutions, been in the industry for so long, share some of your wisdom with us.
Yeah, Rohan, I think echoing the sentiments of the other panelists as well. For quite some time, we've been advocating to think of digital and e-commerce as a process, actually. It's not a one-off campaign here or building a website there. It's actually a distribution channel, and in today's context, it has come to the forefront. So there's a lot of little pieces that really fit together. And I think in the recent past, brands are starting to accept that. It's not just a Facebook campaign or building a website. It's the entire customer experience of how you finally get that product out to the customer, how you manage that experience in total. So it's actually a great place to be because the demand is there in the market. I've been in the industry for 18 years now, and seen the conversation starting from, this website is more expensive than a full page ad on the Sunday Times. So, from there to where we are today, it's pretty fantastic. So we see that this adoption is really now accelerated, and it's brought to the forefront. And as Sudhar also mentioned, from digital being a tag-on service to marketing campaign, today, there are designations in companies for digital managers and chief digital officer and all of that, where the understanding and appreciation for digital is booming. So it's a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, panelists, and thank you for those kind of different overviews. So I think we'll start getting into a bit more specific questions now. And I think for everyone who's watching and who has also been joining us on Zoom, please use this as an opportunity for you to maybe start kicking off your questions or whatever for any of the panelists. As I said, I think it's really, really important to stay true to the thematic that we are discussing here, more like in terms of conversion optimization and the CRO part of it. But having said that, now Shalin, let me just come back to you as the first, because I think there was something very interesting that came out of your opening remarks about how do you really kind of build this. Now you build this brand. I would assume that you have a lot of work ahead of you still, but then of course the COVID happened. And you are in a luxury segment, which, I mean, forgive me for saying this, maybe not the first thing that people worry about under pandemic conditions. Offline sales are really critical for any business for its survival. You're present in multiple, over, I think, 10 plus countries, or more than, I think, 20 countries or so. So I think one of the biggest questions I wanted to ask you is that, how are you seeing these in the buying behavior changes, especially when you see going across boundaries from Sri Lanka to other markets? And, how are you seeing the online and offline behavior that is across these geographies? So two parts of it. Do you see a difference from Sri Lanka to other markets, and what are those differences would be? One part. Second part is, even in the same country, online, offline, how do you think it's changing, and how are you coping with those challenges? Because forgive me for being this thing, but I would assume that maybe online hasn't caught up to offline yet in terms of volumes. Shalin?
Yeah, so I'll start with the first question in terms of how our market or how our consumer differs in many ways as we move from country to country. We are in 26 countries at the moment. And when you move regionally and even sometimes from country to country, a lot of things change. Even the consumer demographic changes. It has to do with exposure, it has to do with education, it has to do with disposable income. So even the age groups of your consumer will change. In Asia, it's a little older. It even gets a little younger when you head into Europe, because again, all those conditions coming into play. Even where people buy their products changes because of the way the channels are structured. So malls are heavier in Asia, but as you start heading to Europe, high street shopping becomes a big thing. When you head to places like Korea and Japan, online is very, very strong. So the structures of online and offline also differ from country to country quite drastically, based on how that country has evolved and the changes. So there are adjustments we have to do as we go into almost every country. There are little tweaks, but the key to everything is, guys, because I've been dubbed entrepreneur, but essentially I'm a marketer, right? So what I do is market. That's what I do. And the way we look at any market we go on to is as marketers. So essentially what we are trying to do is find our audience, really understand our audience's behavior, and then figure out how we can do things to make them feel something. If you want someone to connect with your brand, it comes down to, can you make them feel something, right? You know that thing where they say people will forget what you do for them, people will forget what you say to them, but you never forget how you made them feel. That is always at the core of how we plan our marketing and how we plan on reaching people. So along with that, I'll move to your next question about how things change even here and in all our countries. Because on this make people feel something platform, we've built a brand that is multisensory. There's touch, there's smell, there's feel. You walk into a spa salon store, there's the music, there's the aroma, there's the vibrant colors. Every box has a texture on it. So it's very, very sensory. And suddenly when you take away the connection or the direct connection of your consumer, where they can come in and experience this and talk to people, touch things, smell things, feel things, then there's a sudden gap. Now, when we spend so much time on creating this multisensory feel, when you take away the connection, okay, what do we do now? So that was the challenge for us. Okay, the customer is suddenly distanced. The best form of connection we have is this 2D platform where it's just sound and visuals. So again, we stopped and assessed the customer. We looked at where the customer was in that, what state the customer was, and started looking at how we can best cater to them. So we changed the way we photograph things. We changed the language we use. We brought in music. We changed the type of headlines we use. We brought in a lot more imagery. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but essentially we went back to the same thing. How do we tell our story, but on this platform? Because essentially it's the same thing, right? So it's about learning what you have in place, in terms really understanding, okay, what can social media do for us? What can our websites do for us? What can other Google and all those other things do for us? And then tweaking them to give that customer experience the best we could. So what we did in this 1.5 years is really, really connect with our customers in that way. So the first point was understanding where they were in each stage of this lockdown and pandemic and all that, and start catering to them. So in terms of, oh, go ahead, have your Zoom, we'll help you de-stress. Go do your home workouts, we'll help with those sore muscles, things like that. Then talking to them about sleep, giving them free tutorials, really connecting and taking them forward. Also, the way we presented our information changed drastically, right? So it came back to maintaining those connections for us and taking it forward. In terms of, is the digital space still smaller than the brick and mortar space, or for sure, there's lots more to do to bridge that gap. And I don't really know if you want to bridge that gap as well. But I think both these spaces have a role to play. But what we really got to understanding in this time is how to leverage digital better. And as all these social media platforms evolve, as technology evolves, it's giving us more tools to create that interaction even better. So for brands like us, it's a process of learning and leveraging the tools given to us to continue that connection and continue to make people feel something. It's not about selling, yeah.
Charlie, that's incredible. I personally myself wasn't aware the amount of the work that you have put in over the last couple of years. I think some of the things you mentioned, I mean, I got about 3-4 different questions I want to ask. I definitely want to come back to you on some of the things you did there. And I think you would have anyway done it. It's just that now you had no choice. You kind of had to expedite and compress everything and do it in 1 year as soon as possible type of a thing. Would be the case, what you're saying, right? Mostly.
Absolutely. So little things like, if I can elaborate just a little bit. Now a customer comes into a store, picks up a product, smells it, samples it, and they feel it. And that gives them a granular feel on the hand, that gives them a feel on their skin. It gives a sensory feel. All that happens, and that's a very important part of the cosmetic buying process. You give anyone a cosmetic, I'll give it to any of you guys. First thing you'll do, open it and smell it. That's what we are programmed to do, right? So we had to create that experience through our digital channels, right? So what we did is, the way we photographed our products, we took 3 different routes to photograph it, right? One, we photographed with really fresh ingredients. So you looking at that picture, you could almost smell it. You know how when you squeeze a lime on even on a screen, you can almost taste it. That's
Yeah,
what
we have that nostalgic thing in our head, like when we see those memories come to our heads, right?
tapping into the memories of people. Then the other one is to make them feel the what it felt like to put the product on them. So we did these super zoom shots and videos of the at a granular level of the product and described what the feeling would be on the skin, right? And that gave them almost a feeling of touch.
Yeah.
Then we also did another range of photography and videos where we associated the product with the skin feel. For instance, a cooling balm was photographed with ice.
Yeah.
So it's tapping into your brain and say, okay, ice is cooling. This is a cooling balm. And then the description is that you can almost feel it on your skin, right? And then a refreshing mist was put in water with fresh fruits and all that. So your human beings think in images, right?
Yeah.
So you can mimic sensory feel if you get your imagery right and you support it with the right structure of wording. So that kind of thing is what we really got into, because we know our kind of industry needs that. So you need to figure out what kind of connection your industry needs with your consumer. How does your industry need to make your consumer feel? And then find the right tools on the platforms you've been given to give them that feel. Because sales and marketing hasn't changed.
Yeah.
You just don't make that guy trying to sell something to the other caveman, market it in some way that made him feel something. Now, the place where we market has changed, the tools that we use have changed, but essentially you have to make your customer feel something, right? So that is what our focus is on.
Excellent. Shaleen, I would definitely will be looking at your brand and everything very differently with that insight in the back of my head. So thanks a lot. We'll come back to you. I mean, I'm sure that we have quite a lot of stuff that we can discuss here. Udar, let me come to you. You are like the Facebook man for Sri Lanka right now with your current assignment. It's fascinating. Obviously, you see Sri Lanka in a very different light. There's 6-7 million. I don't know what the numbers are. We stopped talking about numbers after it came to a point and we knew that Facebook is now the undisputed challenge. You guys own WhatsApp. You guys own Instagram. I mean, tell me a little bit about, what do you think about the, kind of a footprint of digital in Sri Lanka? And I'm sure that all the organizations are constantly talking to you about it. What are the common mistakes people are constantly making with dealing with social media and really building a brand that can experience as well as propel through the funnel for their organizations? What are the things you have noticed? And please add any other additional information as well you feel like. Go ahead, Udar.
Yeah, Rohan. I think over the past couple of months, I think now it has been more than a year that we have been here as the Facebook ASP operation in Sri Lanka. And we have been trying to educate the industry as well. What are the new avenues that you can take? What are the new models that you can try out and all, right? And I think most of our clients that we have, they're trying out new stuff. And few points that I would like to highlight here, let's say in Sri Lanka, are we still talking about e-commerce, or do we need to go beyond that, right? So e-commerce is basically let's say let me put it into simple terms, simple words. Let's say e-commerce is like products finding people, right? Products finding people and trying to show it to them, right? What if we can do let's say if I mention what I mentioned was that e-commerce is people are finding products, right? E-commerce is people are finding products and then they are getting to know about these things, right? And in terms of let's say, what if products can find people, the exact people that you want to reach out to? Probably you have seen, right? Let me take an example, right? Let's say about 1 week back, this is 1 week back, one of my as a digital marketer or anyone, right? As a consumer, I was just going through my Facebook feed, Instagram feed, and I saw a few ads from bean bags. Probably you guys also have seen similar ads, right? Similar content. And then actually I didn't have a need to buy, right? I didn't have a need to buy a bean bag or something, right? But I continuously, I saw these posts by different sellers, right? About 2 or 3 different beanbag sellers, right? Yeah. And then what happened was, I was thinking, what if I can sit on a beanbag and do my meetings, all the day rather than sitting on this chair, right? Which uncomfortable chair, right? So that thought came to my mind. But initially, I didn't have this need, right? And then what I did was I went to these pages, right? There are posts on Instagram, Facebook. I went through these posts, right? And also I went to their website. I checked out like different products. They have like different ones. Earlier we had only bean bags, right? Now we have teardrops to take chairs to everything, right? Like amazing, like new stuff that they have come up with, right? I'm amazed by the innovations that they have done. And then after like, I have seen the first post, and then after like 3 weeks, right, I sent one of the sellers a message about like 2 sellers, right? The first one, they never responded to me, right? Because I wanted to know the size, like the length, and actually I wanted to know the delivery details, like whether they can deliver within 2-3 days, because there's another factor I'll try to bring those points as well, the immediacy, right? We can't wait, right? That's why we go to the outlets and buy, right? As Shalin mentioned, that's why we go there, and because we want it right now in our hand, right? When I do my payment, I want it right now, right? So, but online space, it doesn't happen that way, but at least like I can get it day after tomorrow, at least like maybe tomorrow, then I'll be delighted, right? So I wanted to know that. Then the second seller, brand, actually, they responded to me within like 15 minutes, right? I had a long conversation, and he was saying he can't deliver it within this week, and he can deliver it next week, in mid next week, right? And then actually, since he responded to me, I was okay with it. At least he responded to me, and he tried to explain he's getting so many orders, but he can't deliver it within 1 or 2 days, right? And then what happened was I made an order, right? I asked them their bank details, right? Everything happens through Messenger, right? I didn't like go to their e-commerce platform. They don't have even a website. I can't even remember, right? I sent them a message, and they send me the details, bank details, and I shared my delivery address. And within like about 4 days, they delivered. Actually, it's right in front of me right now. I
was going to ask you. Are you seated on that right now as we speak?
No, if you really want, I can show it to you. Do you really want to see it? Let me show you.
Yeah, please do. Oh, I love the color, man. We'll get the
Actually, I didn't buy one. I bought 2, right?
That's what I was going to say. You bought 2 as well.
I bought 2, right? Not only one. Actually, he sent me the invoice for the first one, the big one, teardrop one. And then I asked, can I buy another? A small one to keep my legs, right? And then I bought 2, right? So just think about what happened there, right? We call this as discovery commerce, right? This is not e-commerce, right? So people are not finding products. Now products are finding people, right? So that's what happens on the platform. Like, let's say if I show kind of like an interest about, like, let's say maybe I don't have to show an interest. Even if I see something on my timeline, like let's say recently I'm seeing like a lot of apartments. I'm not sure even I can buy one, but I'm seeing, and I'm kind of like having an interest about it. Right, I'm going through like different pages, sites, and all. I'm just comparing the price, right?
Next time you'll say, I didn't buy one, I bought 2.
I don't think I can offer.
But how big is Facebook here? I mean, I have lost track of Facebook's and its influence in Sri Lanka. How really big is this, and how much of transaction you all are seeing, if it's possible for you all to see by the way?
Rohan, I won't be able to like tell you the exact number per se on the platform, but you can easily find, you can go to Ads Manager and find that information if you really need, but in a public forum, I won't be able to directly say it, but I can say Facebook is the #1 platform, right? You can see in terms of the numbers.
Have you seen like this massive uptake, like a hockey stick growth after COVID? I'm sure you did.
Yes, obviously, right? Overall, it has
average transaction values have come down because there are more people, vendors on the line now and buying type.
But there's another point, right? Let me tell you that. The demand and the supply on the platform, right? So the demand for advertising has increased on the platform, and the supply also has increased, and you might see an increase in the CPM rates in certain cases for certain audiences that you are trying to reach out, right? Some of you might have seen it. We will be publishing an article very soon. I'll be able to share with you all and with the entire team as well. So you can share it with the team how the adoption works as well, for you to understand how it has changed over the past couple of months, right? Obviously, like demand in terms of the advertisers, right? Advertisers' demand on the platform has increased, and at the same time, the usage also has increased, right?
Yeah.
So that's something we need to understand. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Udara. And looking forward to the article, and then we'll definitely take a look at it. And yeah, look forward to see. Hopefully, I'll come and sit and nice.
There'll be a video as well. Yeah, I'll be sure.
That'll be okay. Awesome. Thanks, Udara. Mane, let me come to you. I hope you don't mind. I know that I call you Mane, even though, you know, because of our friendship for years. Mane, I think you have worked at Untitled, obviously, and you obviously have been with some of the other global brands. One of the distinct things I see with from Shale's side as well as you is that, you know, your product range is more, maybe, forgive me for saying, maybe it is little, for brand is luxury, but the requirements are much more on a day-to-day basis, right? Don't get me wrong, I'm sure that there's a consumption need for all brands to be used every day, but yours is a slightly a different type of a consumption and all that. And you have been in more or less in the operations, running the entire thing, not only just the front end part of it. So my question is that, like, you know, it's not enough, like Udara, stemming from what Udara mentioned, it's not enough to have, you know, product being discovered, people inquiring, but in the back end, you have to have quite a lot of missing pieces, or it's like this well-oiled machine, pieces have to come together. What are the things that you have seen challenges inside organizations that prevented them from having this well-oiled machine? And also, what are the things that you think that organizations actually have to get it run to really drive propelling the journey of a consumer online?
That's a great question, Rohan. And my internet is a little bit choppy, so I hope I have got that your brief correctly. Yeah. But essentially, from an operations perspective, right, I think something that we can all agree on at this point is that something along the entire supply chain, we have seen massive disruptions, right, as a result of the pandemic. We can see that, you know, from supply to even to resourcing to, you know, even from the customer demand perspective, right? People are just not willing to spend anymore. They're so much more conscious about their spending patterns because of the whole economic situation, right, that people have to go through. But as operations, unfortunately, nobody says, okay, you know what, times are tough, you guys take a break, that's okay. We don't have that luxury. We just need to keep going. We need to keep delivering. But how do we do that? How do you survive in a situation where it's complete ambiguity, right? And in my experience, over the past, especially the past 4 or 5 years, you know, the biggest area where companies tend to fail is their lack of foresight and their lack of ability to be agile. Right? Things come up every day, situations come up every day, but how prepared are we as organizations to be resilient through those situations? How prepared are we to, you know, change, to pivot strategies, right? And, you know, unfortunately or fortunately in Sri Lanka, we have this very traditional mindset, right? We focus on processes, we focus on getting things right. We don't really focus on our people. But if you look at, you know, how do you be agile? How do we bring about this change, right? It's basically through innovation, right? And how do you innovate? How do you come up with, you know, innovative solutions to the problems that your customers are having? You first need to understand what your customer's problem is before you can come up with a solution, but who really understands that? You know, 90% of the time, it's the people who are in the trenches, right? It's the people who understand your operation. It's the people who are speaking to your customers. Those are the people who really understand the solutions and the problems that you have in the first place. But a lot of organizations in Sri Lanka have this very short-sighted view of, you know, they have this very top-down approach, right? We tend to push strategy on people, to push projects on people. But we don't really spend time understanding from the bottom upwards, you know, how do we solve the problems that people have? How do we solve our customers' needs? By always focusing on the customer first, without focusing on our bottom line first, right? I think that's one area. Another major area that I feel we can improve on as Sri Lankan brands and products is this: we take this very siloed approach to our different marketing and operations functions, right? So if you think about it, you have the marketing team, right? At the top of the funnel, they are the ones who will drive the traffic. They are the ones who will drive the leads, right? They are the ones who will qualify the leads, making sure people fill forms. That will move to the next person. It will move to the pre-sales team. They will work on qualifying that into a sales lead. That will go to the salesperson, right? So we just keep passing it from one stage of the funnel to the next, from one person to the next. But what we as brands, I think, fail to realize is that the customer is still the same throughout that entire journey, from acquisition all the way up to advocacy and loyalty. It's the same person, but we are treating this person, we're just passing them around. We're playing tennis, right? But what if now, especially coming from the current background that I'm in, Rohan, from a very software perspective, right? The way that the software B2B and how we're looking at this product-led growth strategy, right? So we put the product first. So this is synonymous with things like, for example, product demos, like where you get a free trial, where you go, you fill up something, and then you get a temporary access, right? That kind of thing. And what we're doing there is essentially putting the customer's experience first, right? So acquisition, conversion, advocacy, everything first starts with the customer's experience, right? And you build on that. So you try to address as many customer needs as possible right from the onset, right? And what that essentially does is it flips this entire model that we are used to, right? This siloed approach to marketing, sales, success. It flips that entire thing on its back, right? Where we're basically saying now everybody in the company is responsible for getting that customer from the point of acquisition all the way up to the point of being a repeat customer, right? So we're no longer passing the buck. And again, even, I mean, one more area I think where companies can really improve on is on the democratization of data, right? I mean, I'm sure, Charlene, you would know this, right? But we have data stuck on ERP systems. We have data stuck on e-commerce stores, right? But what we don't use this data. We are not using the information. I know I can see Rohan smiling because I know I'm touching on a very touchy area, right? But
multiple really touchy areas there in your
very touchy areas. But it's the truth. Like, we have all of this information about our customers and we're doing nothing with it. For example, I mean, I'm sure Charlene must be knowing all of this, but if you know that you have a customer who's coming and buying from your site every 2 months, right? And if you know they're buying an average basket size of X, and if you see that in the last 6 months, they haven't come and purchased from you, you know something's wrong, right? You immediately know that there is something there that you need to fix. So then can we proactively as brands reach back to our customers and say, listen, what's happening? Can we send you a free sample? Did anything happen that we should fix or we should be aware of? So yeah, I think that's a little bit of my thoughts on the whole.
Mane, you went to about 2 or 3 places where
I would like
demands a separate webinar of its own, right? Udar, including you also.
You want
to make sure that we kind of don't get into all of that, because those will open up, and all of us, as panelists, I expect all of you to have opinions about this, and but it's amazing, incredible. Thank you so much. I think there's a question on the panel from Isura, especially about questions about telco and their services. Again, I will not take the question at the moment because it's mostly dealing with a very specific problem, and we don't want to get into a different conversation. But I think some of the answers for your question is already in the things that Manesha just told about the entire organization having the alignment and using the data and a few other things. So we will park that question for now, but thank you for the question. If you others have any questions, please let them come through. We also got our Facebook Live.
If I can interrupt you for a moment to correct something.
Go ahead, please.
Right?
Yeah.
What makes you think my product is not required every day?
I knew that was coming. I was trying to escape out of that hole I dug myself into by saying, yeah. Sorry.
We use the Sparsil on de-stress.
Exactly. How are people showering?
For me, it's about affordability, Shalin. It's not so much about the requirement.
It's required in shower.
Actually, a thing called the lipstick effect, right? Just have a look at it when you guys have the time. The lipstick effect talks about in times of crisis where luxury goods that are, so we are at a level called masstige. We're not super luxury, but we are luxury, right?
Yeah.
So this level of goods really do so because
Yeah.
we are in the business of making people feel good,
Yeah.
right? So in times of turmoil, in times of crisis, brands like us do quite well. Again, coming back to making people feel good, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so get your shower gel, use it every day.
I will.
Start
And
there.
I am not the benchmark when it comes to.
Really showers.
I have a skincare routine on my social media. Go check that out.
Yeah,
I deserve it.
Rohan, I'm going to jump in here and just talk about how each of the panelists, what they talked about and potentially how we can tie it together. So this is why actually from day one, we've been talking about digital and the entire buying cycle as part of a process, right? So I'm going to give you 3 examples. When it comes to online purchase or any sort of purchase, it's a risk reward analysis, right? So what is the risk you take and what is the reward that you get? When you buy a product online, there are multiple questions you ask about that risk, right? So to give you a very simple example, take in clothing brand. They reduce the risk for their customers by giving a fantastic return and refund policy on their website, right? So if you buy this and the material is not up to your standard or the size is not what you expected, you have that great return option, refund option. Just the changing of that policy really shot up their conversion rate, because what that brand did was reduce the risk for that consumer, right? And when Udara talks about discovery e-commerce, when we look at the funnel, we broadly break it down into 3 parts. You have the discovery, how you translate that discovery into engagement, and how you basically get that consumer to make an action based on that engagement. So in this scenario, it's an example I use often, and I'll just repeat that here as well, is when I was on Instagram, I was targeted with an ad on smart AC remote. So basically you hook it up to your air condition and then you can on your air condition from your phone, right? When I saw this product and $49, I was like, you know, who would actually spend on this kind of thing? Has technology gone too far? Kind of, pretty skeptical.
Yeah.
But then I saw another message from that same brand. And here what they had done is they had given it in the context of a use case, which is walk into a cold room, switch on your air condition 30 minutes before you arrive, right? And as soon as I saw that message, that was the exact problem that I was having. Because as you know, we have converted residents into our office. Each of us are based in different rooms, individually air conditioned. So more often than not, I actually walk into a hot room, I put on the AC, and then I go around the floor and come back when my room is cooled 15-20 minutes later. Suddenly that message spoke exactly to the use case that was relevant to me. And digital is one of the few channels that allows you to experiment with your messaging, create those use cases, and build your funnel based on specific messaging. And as Manesha also mentioned, if we take it in the context of data and we look at it in the context of a process, now this is something I always talk about in the hotel industry. More often than not, most of the hotel chains and the larger properties in Sri Lanka, they have their own booking engines, right? And when somebody comes and puts a check-in, check-out date, number of guests and number of rooms, you have an idea of their intent when they're trying to stay, when they're trying to travel, right? So this data, more often than not, is left ignored on the booking engine, where a simple analytics implementation can extract that data for you and tell you there are 1,000 people from the UK on average looking at 6 months trying to travel in these dates, and these are the offers that you're looking at. So across the board, as we operate, we have data, and those data points are rather siloed because of the implementation approach that we have at the moment. So the ERP is an offline solution, the e-commerce website is something else. But more often than not, today you can have conversations on bridging that gap. So that, I think, the CRM process of tying that all together and maintaining a unified customer profile across all of your touch points is, I'm happy to see more and more Sri Lankan brands actually take that approach and start that adoption. So I think it's a great place to be across the spectrum, because that investment and that knowledge base is growing, where brands are also demanding for this to push forward.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, thanks for that, Inak. I think you're absolutely right. I think we have seen a level of maturity coming in, right? And I think today the demands of the customers are a lot different. I think your particular point that you raised just now also kind of nicely segue to a question that I want to raise to Shalin specifically. Like Niranka spoke about this, the CRM, and then Mane talked about the power of being able to use data. You know, Udara spoke about discovery, commerce, and all that. And I think you obviously, you know, as a brand needs to tie all of these pieces together to make the business work in the way that it is expected to work. Do you have, I mean, I'm just going to ask this question is that, you know, what are your frustrations, you know, pushing this through in your organization as operations and as a thought leadership? You know, what are the challenges, frustrations, and opportunities you have seen? What seems to have worked? Where did you struggle the most in applying these things? Because this connects back to getting the maximum out of your digital investments.
See, essentially, non-centralized data is a big problem. Not only us, I think a lot of companies in Sri Lanka have it, because the way we grow, for instance, now our factory will operate independently, logistics will operate independently, all our stores, POS systems, that data is on a different platform, our accounting systems on a different platform at the moment, then our online data is on a different platform, and there are at certain points they're put together almost manually, which is not ideal. So now we are in the process of centralizing the data so it can be handled better. So even when a customer walks into any store, ideally they need to be identified as a customer, what is their regular purchaser, they need to be on an app. So all that is getting there. So I think the big challenge for us and a lot of other businesses that have grown and grown rapidly is that our data is all over the place. So if you want to make good use of the data, firstly, we need to centralize it. And of course, sorting and taking from there is getting the right software equipment in. The other aspect is also, I don't think our financial services are very well geared to handle what's going on as well. We are having a lot of problem with platforms. There are a few platforms that take on all the credit cards. Then in times of refunds and things like that, it takes days when the customer is not willing to accept that if something happens, they want a solution now. So there are glitches there. Also, because of the penetration of the banking sector as well, I think Sri Lanka is fairly underbanked, because even if you see the number of COD orders, it's huge. So at present, our COD orders, even in a sparse loan context, is about 60-70%. If you take the Janet brand, it will go up to about 80%. So now those are not ideal for a brand because it's very inefficient. Because you go, they're not there, you don't get delivered. So another 10-15% of that could be returned again. So how do we get more people into this banking system where there is some level of transactionability, where they have something rather than going to COD? Yes, there's a risk issue involved as well, but how do we educate them better to bring them into that? So those are the bigger environmental things, and I think the main inter-organization thing is the data thing.
Wow, interesting problems. I mean, I don't want to touch up on the banking one because I have been, you know, kind of commenting about the need for financial instruments to get advanced for a long time. It's a different webinar again. I think we are creating a lot of subsegments of the webinars, I think, which are very critical, and we should have a very honest conversation about it, Shal. But excuse me, but having said that, you said you made some very good progress over the last this thing. I mean, how did you do that? I mean, what took you to get there? I mean, with all of these challenges to get to where you are.
See, I look, there's much more to be done in terms of we were not ready for even the websites we had to handle this kind of volume, right? So we're having backend issues there as well, which we're working with Antara for as well. We'll throw in plugin there, which should be fixed in the next month or so. But other than that, what we had to do is also, it was new to people, right? So we had to connect with people a little better. So we have about, again, 30% of our customers who still can't get online and order. So we have a support system through WhatsApp or call, where they can call or WhatsApp and we'll do the order for them and send them the payment link. Now, in certain cases, especially with the Janet brand, they can't even handle that. So it has to be that and then an account transfer and so on. So what we did is create a lot of accessibility to our customers, give them a lot of flexibility as to how they could interact with us.
Nice.
Every form of, I mean, they could get on, they could DMS on Udara's platforms. They could get on WhatsApp is there as well. And we have Viber communities. So we created as much connect as possible to make this process easy. And we created a bridge between online and them. There were the guys who were using online and they were very comfortable with it. For them, all they wanted was like you guys are saying is, we live in a world of instant gratification. I made the order, can I have the product now? So then we got guys like Uber involved. I think we were one of the first cosmetic brands to be on Uber, where if you want it like now, you can order us on Uber and it'll get delivered to you in the next half an hour. We also work with courier companies for same-day delivery, things like that. So the more equipped shopper or the more experienced shopper wanted a little more convenience, wanted faster delivery, wanted click and collect. We made all those things happen. For the new customers, we created a lot of connectivity to help them and guide them through it. There is also something that we are not really admitting, but there is still a huge language problem. There are people who are single-speaking, Tamil-speaking people who can't navigate through the websites as easily as we think. So there is that as well. So there's a lot of phone calls navigating people through sites. Now we are looking at how can we make it trilingual. Because I mean, if you look at our foreign sites, you'll get it in a couple of languages, but we never thought of making Sri Lankan sites trilingual. I don't know why.
Absolutely must be becoming more important for you now, right?
Absolutely. So as the brand gets a little more mass, it really helps because again, our kind of product, people want to read up a little more. They want to see what the ingredients are. They want to see how to use it. It's a lot more interaction. So a lot of our online, like Udara was saying, this conversation he had with the beanbag guy, we have a huge amount of conversations with people, long conversations on the phone, on text lines, on DMs, just talking to them about product, how to use it, where do I use it, how often do I use all that. So there needs to be, apart from you having great systems in place and all, there needs to be a great backend support system with humans and bots and all that for sure to keep people informed, because we are still at a bridging stage. And we can carry people through. In this time, we'll do quite well.
I think from hearing from you, I think one of the things that I'm saying is that as a brand, you're not only responsible for getting the customer experience, all those different things, but also like about educating, creating the awareness, helping them through, which is a burden and almost like it's an essential burden that you still have to carry because that maturity level is there. Hi, Shanila. Good to see you in the panel, in the audience. And I saw your question. I think part of that question would have been asked by I would assume by the answer that Shalin gave about the amount of effort that he's committing, resourcing, time, effort in getting there. Udara, let me come to you. Udara, go ahead. I think you could.
Can I add something?
By the way, he's done with the marks. He owns his Facebook.
That aside, and to add a bit of like perspective to what Shalin mentioned, right? So kind of like a theoretical part of it, right? So what Shalin mentioned in the practical way of it, right? So we call those points as like frictions, right? So you can't have frictions when you're trying to sell products online, right? So anyway, the friction is one of the biggest threats to your business, right? I think Shalin know it best, right? Because he has understood it, right? Because he has seen like if he reduce the friction, your sales goes up, right? So that's one major part. Like we have couple of like series of sessions that we are doing in terms of like zero friction future sales presentations that we are doing for our clients as well, right? So let me mention a couple of points, right, to bring a bit of like perspective to what I think Charlene mentioned in terms of like, let's say if I'm bringing a bit of like concepts that we are talking about, right? There are 3 stages, right? In like when we try to sell products online, right? Discovery, right? It can be online or even offline, right? There are 3 stages. One is discovery stage, and then the purchase stage, and then the post-purchase stage, right?
Yeah.
Then in terms of like reducing the frictions, right? There are certain areas that you need to focus on in terms of like discovery stage, the awareness perspective of it, inspiration, browsing, technology optimization, right? These are 4 key areas that you can look into, right? In terms of the discovery stage, right? And in terms of the purchase stage, right? Driving consideration, the checkout method that you have, as Charlene mentioned earlier, right? And then the payment gateways, right? Whether it's COD, cash on delivery, or like whether people can pay it online or a bank transfer, or any other method, right? What are the avenues that you have provided, right? Those are 3 key areas that you can look into, like at the purchase stage. Something that most of the businesses in Sri Lanka is doing is they're stopping after the second stage, purchase. They don't go into the post-purchase stage, right? At the post-purchase stage, we have 3 key areas that you need to look into in terms of reducing the friction, right? The first one would be the fulfillment, right? That's what I looked into when I was buying the beanbag, right? Yeah. Delivery, right? Yeah. Delivery, how long it will take, right? I think Charlene also covered that part, right? Fulfillment, right? And then the support, right? Especially like, let's say if I'm buying an electronic product or something, right, where I need a bit of support, technical support or something, are they providing it? Will you be providing it? And it will impact for my next purchase, right? If I'm going to like if you want to retain me as a customer in future, that will impact the support, right? And then the repurchase activities, right? How are you going to help your customers in terms of like buying products again and again, right? How have you like reduced the friction in terms of that? Let's say I have bought certain products, like I have bought certain products from Charlene's range, like one of the Ninda, that roll-on balm, that's maybe that. Yeah, I have that product. And can you show some other products to me, right? Yeah. Will you be showing some other products to me if I'm supposed to buy like certain other products which would add value to me, right? So how are you going to reduce the friction? Oh, like, should I do it by myself? Should I go through your site and find the exact product? How are you going to do that, right? So these are the few areas that you can look into.
Udar, I would definitely agree with one very important thing you said. Like, I had a situation about a year, 1.5 years back. One of the leading e-commerce sites, I bought a product, they delivered the wrong brand, right? And then getting that replaced and all of that, for me, it was definitely a turn off. I don't know why I ordered a brand A and they delivered brand B, thinking that I'm okay to accept that. I think maybe that was a gimmick thing, right? And that pushed me away, or that kind of pushed me away. It took me another almost 1.5 years to even go back again and start ordering. And I was thinking that for that 1.5 years, they must have lost so much of order. If they have just said, hey, listen, we don't have that brand, but this brand does the same thing, and a simple communication would have solved that problem. And I think you're absolutely right. There's not enough attention being paid post-purchase. I think that is going to be the real critical area for a customer experience and managing that. So
Rohan, sorry, I just want to add one more thing to that. Usually, when we look at this entire approach, lifetime value of the customer is something that we advocate and plan for from day one, because it's a lot easier to sell to the same customer than it is to acquire a new customer. And even in the context of the engagement, right, you would spend, let's say, a couple of dollars on a Facebook ad versus a few cents sending an email to that person through a channel like email marketing. So usually, as Udara also mentioned, when it comes to post-purchase, it's the experience. But as a brand, we usually advocate that you need to have a post-purchase strategy as well. What percentage of repeat customers are you going to go after? and how have you enabled your engagement methods to be top of mind for that brand and continuously sell to them without overdoing it. And this process is the theory is the same, but it might vary from industry to industry. If I take a restaurant as an example, the challenge for us is to get somebody to order that one dish and say, this is my comfort food, this is my go-to dish, this is what I would crave for every every weekend or whatever, right? And if you take like the average ticket size for a restaurant and the costs involved in acquiring new customers, it becomes massively important to build a loyalty base where at least 30 to 40% of your restaurant customers are repeat customers who will walk in without you having to do anything. Of course, you can instigate that saying, hey, we are having a special promo, or there's a credit card offer or something like that. But to establish that top of mind and to be a go-to brand is pretty important in the digital perspective. So we advocate this approach where we ask our customers, our brands that we work with, to build a tier structure and assign your customers into those tiers and think of the post-purchase user journey within those tiers, right? So a simple example is you've just bought a TV. What can we upsell to enhance that experience? Here's a Chromecast or whatever, so that you can watch your this thing. So that approach allows us to have a conscious discussion saying, how do we quantify and identify this lifetime value of these potential customers and the user journeys we want to create for them, the messaging we want to create for them, and how we would invest in that process as a brand. So right on the money what Udara said, in this online journey, the post-purchase part is as important as anything else.
Can I just something to that, Rohan?
Go ahead, Shalin.
Another thing we've also figured out is at the point of purchase, which actually goes into post-purchase as well, is identifying buyer behavior and the buyer's actual need, right? Yeah. So we've realized that now, let's say someone using a night cream, shower gel, whatever that is, there is a lifetime of the product. If you're using a night cream, your night cream is going to run out in a month. You're going to have to come back to buy again. So now what we are doing is we are doing systems where you can do a subscription at the point of purchasing straight away and say every month on the 30th of the month, charge me and send me my product home. Yeah. Then there are other behaviors like, like frequently bought with kind of situations where we are doing bundles together and saying, okay, we know if someone's buying this, they have this skin condition. Straight away take them to a bundle and say, look, why not buy all this? And then we'll give you incentive for buying all of them together. So identifying the life cycle of the product they're buying and identifying their needs and behaviors also gives a lot of insight into how you can structure that purchase process and the post-purchase situation as well.
Okay.
That's very true. And I think even from the perspective of measurement, if you look at it, how do you really structure what you measure to be able to identify what the customer's needs are? So I think even like now, when I say churn, I know everyone's going to think SaaS and everyone's going to think, subscription-based business models. Yeah. But okay, if you look at churn, what is churn? Churn is how many customers have you churned out of your business, right? How many new customers do you have to acquire to keep your business going? So if you take those same learnings and apply it to any industry, really, as Niranka correctly said, it's cheaper for us to retain our existing customers. We can all agree on that, right? And I think like Udara touched on, I think, the cost of advertising has increased dramatically, right? I mean, Udara, you might not 100% agree with that sentiment, but in my experience, it has, right? In every year.
Value for money.
Okay, that's what it's called, is it, right? But what's killing us in all of this is that the customers are not willing to spend anymore, right? So people are really, we need to spend more to bring someone to our website who's probably going to spend less, right? So how is this impacting us in the long run? So if we think of that whole idea of churn, right? How many customers can we retain in our ecosystem? How many customers do we need to bring in on a regular basis, even from a B2C perspective? And then something very interesting that we look at from a technology perspective is the net promoter score, customer lifetime value, CSAT scores, right? How basically, what is your customer's experience? And when you need to rate that essentially at every touch point, all through the user journey. So when they come to your website, what is their experience? When they're on social media, what is their experience, right? When post-purchase, during the purchase, what is their experience? Because it can be at any point that would fail. And I don't know, I read some statistics somewhere that it said that for every one bad customer experience, we need to create 12 good ones to be able to bring that customer back into our ecosystem.
Oh, I agree, because we go out of the way to badmouth bad experiences,
exactly.
right? But
especially uncles, right?
Yeah, we don't really talk about good stuff because we think we deserve it, we earned it, and that's the way the organization should perform. But bad stuff, we always talk about. Couple of things I think is that I hope all of the panelists are okay if we kind of overshoot by about 5 minutes, because I know we've taken a bit of a time. I honestly lost track of time. So thank you so much for that. There are a couple of questions. I know that Udara, you want to take a question, but Mane, I want to get into a very specific question and then maybe do a concluding round as well. Udara, you wanted to answer that iOS thing. I thought maybe we'll just skip that question, but I think you wanted to tackle that. Go ahead. The question is around whether, iOS situation, this is by Yasas, how iOS and the new privacy features affecting campaigns. May I just request Udara to give a quick, brief answer to that?
Yeah. So I believe most of you know that after the iOS 14.5 update, there are certain restrictions, right? In terms of tracking, there are certain restrictions. But Facebook, as a platform for Facebook for business, as a platform for advertisers, we have come up with certain solutions that you can integrate, right? In terms of, like, let's say, most of the advertisers, what they had the issue was like whether, as Yasas has mentioned, whether it will affect my campaign in terms of the optimization, in terms of the conversion rates, in terms of the result rates that I used to get. Right. So, but there are certain solutions that we have come up with, right? I will mention two points mainly, right? One point is the aggregated event measurement solution that we have provided, right? So if you have a particular Facebook pixel that you have integrated, and if you have certain events that you have figured, you can use the aggregated event measurement solution, right? If you are not aware about it, you can reach out to us anytime. We are here to help you in terms of that.
The Facebook in Udara came out.
Yeah.
I love it. Good,
and
man.
We have another solution, Rohan, right?
I'm an Android guy. You know this.
Yeah,
so.
I think even I used to be an Android guy, and but I love Apple. I don't have any issue, right? But we have solutions for anything, right? Even like if there's like there'll be a solution. So the other solution would be, so we were relying on browser-based tracking, right? Like, let's say Facebook Pixel is a browser-based tracking method, right? And you have to add a piece of code to your website, and then it'll track all the users who will be coming to your website. That's how it happened, right? But now you have another solution that we call as server-based tracking, right? So it'll be tracked from the back end of your server, right? So we call it as CAPI, or conversion API tracking, right? So you have two different solutions. If you're missing out certain set of like users who will be visiting your website, like let's say from Pixel, you're losing out. You can't track them, right? Because they're using 14.5 or above version, right? What you can do is you can track them through conversion API, right? So those are the solutions that you can use. I won't be able to go into detail. That's a separate session. So if you are interested, you can reach out to us.
I'm glad. I mean, because for the benefit of the thematic, I'm glad you answered. I think these are interesting questions. Obviously, again, demands another webinar. I mean, we have about 14 different webinars that we listed out. Nira, a point question: email overrated?
Yeah, Rohan, I think when we talk about email marketing, the unfortunate situation in Sri Lanka is everybody thinks of spam, right?
Yeah.
Where they sell, for 5,000 rupees, we have a base of 100,000, that kind of thing, right? But email marketing, if done properly, and if you adhere to CAN spam laws and all that, basically means you have prior permission, which also means you have some kind of rapport or relationship you've established with that customer. So email marketing is actually one of the highest converting channels, because that recipient has already told you that I want to receive an email from, right? So when we talk about email marketing, we also advocate to brands figure out how to build those touch points, right? When you sign up for an email, you're going to get 10% off. When you during your purchase process, you ask them whether you'd like future recommendations. Build your own base, which is essentially a captive audience who have some kind of brand affiliation, and then in a strategic manner maintain that conversation without like overburdening them with emails daily kind of thing. So some brands we've worked with, conversion ratio from like 3-4%, we've taken it up to about 30-odd%.
Right.
And email has been one of their top performing channels in in the context of online sales. So for me, email marketing is massively important. It's just that as a brand, you need to think of how to build that structure and relationship before you send them an email.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Udar, one second. Let me. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
Yeah. Can I add another point in terms of email marketing as a digital marketer, not as a Facebook guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get.
I was kidding, man. I always saw you as a digital guy, not a.
Yeah. So email marketing is one of the oldest methods of digital marketing, I would say, right? Rohan, you all might know, right? Email marketing is one of the oldest methods, and where we go wrong is we compare email marketing apple to apple with other methods, right? Other digital advertising methods, right? There is a role for email marketing, right? You can't do what you're doing with Facebook advertising, Google advertising, or whatever the advertising that you do with email marketing, right? There's a specific role for that. You need to understand that, and you have to do it correctly, right? So there are many businesses who are doing that, right? Don't you open emails? There are certain emails that you open, right? Promotional emails. I do, right? When I get like 200s of like emails every day, there are certain emails that I open still, right? Because the consent that I have provided, right? And as Niranka mentioned, right? The permission, we call it as permission marketing, right? So it works, right? But you need to use it correctly, right? That's where we go wrong, and don't compare it with other platforms. There's a role for that.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it. I wish this was a Friday night and we all would be, in one room and having a chat, and helping ourselves to some beverages, which I cannot mention live right now. But hey, life is such, to quote the great Optimus Prime, he said, "Fate rarely calls you upon a time of your choosing." If these were the great philosophers of our age and era. Shall I to have the closing remarks? There are a few questions I'm sure you're also seeing in the panel. If you want to answer any of them, please go ahead. But I would love to hear. I had a couple of questions here, but I couldn't really get around to it. But you gave so much of wisdom and advice, and it's amazing to hear how you, looking at a business leader, about your organization, the amount of attention to detail you have gone through. I'll be honest, Shaleen, I didn't know, and I have so much of respect for your brand as a result of listening to you say that. I would like to have the closing remarks, and we'll go around and do the closing remarks and wrap up the webinar for today. Sorry, Shaleen, you're on mute. I think I cannot hear you.
Mostly, thanks for having me. It's been fun. My closing remarks are, I think digital marketing is an amazing tool and an amazing space. And the key here from my point of view, it's two things. One is figure out every ounce of flexibility it gives you, and every ounce of targeting it gives you, all the tools that it can give you to do your marketing right. But the bigger thing for me is, at the end of the day, any sort of marketing, it ends at a human decision.
Yeah.
Attention phase is to a human. So you need to evoke some sense of feeling. So while looking at the theories, techniques, all that, just figure out, by using these tools that digital marketing gives us, can we evoke feeling? If you can evoke feeling, whether it's on an email or a Facebook or Instagram or whatever, then you made that connection. So also start looking at consumer lifestyle, because that gives you a lot of insight as to how to use these tools. So that's my closing
Thank
piece.
you, Shalin. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to have you. Mane, coming to you. There's a question I wanted to ask. I would love you to touch on a little bit about what do you think about the multi-channel attribution, about different channels contributing, and how organizations need to touch upon the experience and the CRO part of it. And then your closing remarks, please.
100%. So I think on the multi-channel side of things, Rohan, without taking too much time, I think, when Google came out with this whole zero moment of truth theory, that was, by the way, a decade ago, just in case anybody missed it, right? We all fell off our chairs, right? We were like, wow, this is what we were thinking, right? They put into words what we were thinking of how offline and online marry so well together, and how, we as brands need to be conscious of, the movement, the shift. And of course, if your brand isn't there yet, you're probably very late to the game, and it's time to throw in the towel. But no, but I'll give you an example. Actually, while I was working with Antara a few years ago, I decided actually that our Facebook campaigns were not converting. Sorry, Udara. It was for our industry, right? For the industry that I was working with at the time. Conversions itself, we couldn't attribute to Facebook. All the other channels were converting pretty well. But the moment we decided to switch off that Facebook campaign, Facebook ads, we found that it affected every other campaign and the number of visitors, everything. So like Udara correctly mentioned, Facebook played that discovery role for us in that case, right? So it's so important to, again, understand your customer, understand who the customer is, the geography, like Shalin correctly mentioned, right? Look at what TikTok is to the Gen Zers. Look at what Instagram and Facebook is to millennials, right? Look at what Beidou is to the Chinese market and what WeContact is to the Russian market. In all those instances, depending on who your customer is, your strategy has to change completely. And I think in terms of my closing remarks, I think one thing that everyone, as digital marketers, what we need to worry about is there are two aspects of it. One aspect is operations, which I'm heavily involved in, which is great. You need to know your brand, you need to know your business. But more than anything else is that you need to know the execution, right? And if you don't get the execution right, because especially in Sri Lanka, a lot of managements are very short-sighted. They assume that digital gives results overnight, but it doesn't. And it's so important to have an ecosystem around you of people that you can work with. Like for me, for example, I always work with Antara, right? I'm throwing that in there as well a little bit. Simply because I trust because I know I have worked with you guys. I understand your thinking. I understand the process behind it. But a lot of people assume that you hire one digital marketing person and that's all you need, right? But you have search, you have social, you have data to analyze, you have so much work to do. And it's so important to have the right team behind you to help you, support you to do that. And of course, focusing on customer first.
Yeah, amazing.
That is in my...
you're absolutely right. A lot of people today, I think we are seeing that a lot of people think by hiring one individual solves the problem, which is, no, it's a serious commitment. It is a commitment you have to make with eyes open. Udara, there's some questions on the side. I'm sure if you want to pick one, go ahead, mate, and love to hear your closing remarks as well. And then I'm coming to you last, mate.
Yeah, so I'll try to link with certain questions as well. Like there's one particular question from Dakshita. What would be the definition of a successful buying journey, right? So like, as I mentioned in the beginning, in a buying journey, right? Like consumer's journey, right? When someone is about to purchase something, right? There are certain like steps that he would go through. In my example, right? Beanbag example, right? What are the steps that I went through, right? I found it. I was not interested in the first place, right? They created the purchase intent in me, right? I didn't have that purchase intent in the beginning, right? They created the purchase intent, right? And then they took me through a path, even like without knowing about it. As Shalin mentioned correctly, right? They like sparked certain like feelings in me, certain emotions in me, right? That I need comfort, right? From a product like this, at least, right? It sparked in my mind, right? So if you can like fulfill each of these stages, right, without any friction, as I mentioned, right? So you will be able to be successful in all the digital marketing activities that you do, right? And also something that you can look at is from the first point to the end point, right? There won't be an end point. This would be a circle anyway, right? But when you come to the purchase point, right? The ratio that you have, that's something that you can look at, right? If you have reached out to, like, let's say 1 million people, and then like, let's say people who have reached out to you directly, like, let's say to inquire about a product, like, let's say 500,000 people, and how much of sales have you generated? Can you improve this ratio in each of the stage, right? Without like reducing it, without letting it to go down? Can you improve it? That's how you can look at it, I would say, right? And I would like to mention another 3 points very quickly, right? I think we are over the time, I guess. 3 points. I think Manesha also mentioned, Niranka, Shalin, everybody mentioned about it. At the end of the day, it's all about like our customers, right? They are going to make that decision, right? From whatever the activities that you are going to do, right? It doesn't matter like how good you are in like picking up the campaign objectives, targeting, right? The budget that you have put, right? Whatever that you are doing, right? It's at the end of the day, your customers are going to see your creative and everything, right? So how are you going to use this audience, right? So there are 3 key points that you need to look at. Let me quickly tell you that. First one would be the audience cultivation, right? I think we have a super example, Sparse alone, they have done it for like years, right? It didn't happen in overnight, right? They took like years to build this, right? Audience cultivation, right? And then they nurtured this audience that they cultivated, right? They nurtured these audiences. And now they have built communities, I would say, right? Who would like bring that word of mouth? Actually, now I'm hearing about Sparse alone, not from ads. From your ads, I'm getting to know about the promotions that you're doing. But I'm getting to know about your products from your community that you have built, right? How good the products are, right? And which product that I should use, not from you, Shalin, right? So that's the beauty. That's how you have built your brand, right? So we have a classic example, and these are like put to like, for me to like put into perspective, like 3 key areas if you need to understand how you have done it.
Udara, that's excellent one. I think the greatest company who built that community is Apple, to be very honest with you. I mean, the way that we feel about it, even as much as I hate that, I mean, I am still interested to know what's going on. Like, by the way,
I won't take an international example when we have a great local example.
Respect, bro. Respect. Absolutely true. Nira, over to you for closing remarks, and we can wrap up after that.
Thanks, Rohan. So for me, I think one fundamental, if this was like the only takeaway, is evolution, right? There is going to be new platforms, new tools, data that you collect through your operations. All of this, you need to have a framework that you bring into perspective and evolve. It's a bit of a gripe from my end. This is maybe an area that isn't as considered in the Sri Lankan context, conversion rate optimization, which is you build something with the existing data and certain assumptions, but you need to have the structure in place to evolve based on the new data that you're gathering, right? So I had a customer, when we looked at their buying funnel and said, okay, we can possibly improve this to increase your conversion ratio. The response was like, I thought you guys were the experts. So you gave me a shopping cart that could have been improved. I want you to do all of that for me free, right? So a bit of a gripe there, but in overall, look at Airbnb. If you go to Airbnb now, they have a large button saying I'm flexible, right? So their entire user journey started with searching for dates. Now they know people are stuck at the inspiration, dreaming stage because of all these travel restrictions. So instead of choosing the dates, you have an option saying I'm flexible, just to hop in there and see what's available in the market, right? If you look at their website, I think they have redone and evolved their website 11 times in the last 7 or 8 years, right? So the digital space is all about evolution, adapting to the market dynamics, as well as looking at your data to continuously improve your basically customer journey. How can you sell better, right? And this can go across the spectrum. If you take a title and meta tag on a web page, right? personal experience, something I experimented with. The description, when you search for something on Google and your search result comes up, and you see that little description, that's your meta description. We changed that 6 times and measured the click-through ratio of that particular listing, right? And we were able to double the click-through ratio by experimenting with that 160 character message to see how can we optimize this further. So digital is, in my opinion, and anyone who sells online, is to have that frame of mind where you are consistently evolving. It's not a website you build and then you forget about it for 3 years and now it's time to change it again. It's about continuously evolving, adapting, and practicing stuff like CRO as part of your day-to-day.
Also put in the right resourcing, getting the right support,
Definitely.
as well. Okay, gentlemen, it's been and madam, it's absolute privilege, and it's absolute. I learned so much. First of all, at my age, I really care about time. You know, every minute matters. So I think we have overshot by about 11 minutes. So I apologize for everyone. I know you all have a lot of executive time. This is serious investment from your side. So I'm heartfelt gratitude. Very grateful. It's always nice to hear you guys talk. I myself learned a lot. I hope the people who have been with us learned, and I think we've live streamed also on Facebook. The recording will be available later on our YouTube channel and as well as on Facebook channel. Isuru and Santosh, there were 2 questions from you that we did not really answer. I think we just kept it open because those are a little bit broader questions and etc. Apologies, but if you're still interested, leave a message on the Facebook. We'll try to get back to you with an answer, but I think all the others want to be done. Thank you so much, and it's amazing. And also, I wanted to say thank you to everybody at Antira, also my organization and Niranka's organization. We are both very proud of to be part of. This is my plug, Shalin, right? If you are interested in anything, please do reach us. We have, I think we would go to the extent of bragging, saying we are probably the largest organizations who manages in terms of volume of e-commerce transactions that managed in Sri Lanka. So please do reach out to us if you have any clarifications. We look forward to it. We are a creative performance marketing agency. Thank you so much. Udara, a lot of love for you. Mane, obviously. Shalin, over to you as well. Good luck with all your personal as well as your professional ventures and your progress. Look forward to being part of you and look forward to seeing all of you back again after about 1 year and saying, or 6 months later and having this conversation and say, wow, the world has changed again. So it'll be interesting. Stay safe. All the best. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much and take care. Good luck. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.